I wanted to say. Okay, welcome everybody to this tutorial of the month session. You know, we do this like monthly based on a text that was translated in our KBP project and that was taught by a teacher before. And then we meet like this with team members to discuss on this text. And so today is the tutorial on the melody of Sublime, Everlasting Deathlessness, a text written by Nijeeta Jagtiani, and Lama Tsering Everest has taught on this text last week. And you can also find this text in the reading room on our website, and on YouTube you can find the recording of Lama Tsering Everest's teachings on this text. And today is also Nijeeta Jagtiani's anniversary, so we will in the beginning also celebrate that briefly. And as you can see, we have three wonderful people here, Nijeeta, Dana, and Adam, who are our translators of this text. And Nijeeta completed her PhD in Buddhist studies from Northwestern University. And yeah, she's a wonderful translator, and she's aspiring to translate more and more texts of Nijeeta Jagtiani. Then we have Adam, who has also a strong Theravada background and a strong connection to Dzogchen Rinpoche, and within his mandala, he's also a great translator and a big support. And he also studied in Ranglung Yeshe Institute, and yeah, he's also, as you can see, part of our team. And then we have Dana, who did his BA in Religious Studies from the Naropa University. And he's also very, very active in Sio Kongto Rinpoche's Sangha. And what I find very impressive also that he was the head builder of the Sangdo Paldu temple there, you know, so that is amazing. So welcome all three of you. And also welcome to Stephanie Lee, whom you cannot see because she is translating all this simultaneously into Chinese. So thank you for doing that. And welcome, of course, also to Dolma, who is here, our project holder or our main director. And also thank you, Ina, for being our technical queen today. Okay, then maybe we just start. I would like to start with some prayers first, and like refuge and bodhicitta, and then a short prayer to Nijeeta Jagtiani. Let me share this. So I hope you can see it properly. Let's do it in English. In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha Sublime, we seek refuge until awakening. By virtue of our giving and the like, may we awaken to benefit all. In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha Sublime, we seek refuge until awakening. By virtue of our giving and the like, may we awaken to benefit all. In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha Sublime, we seek refuge until awakening. By virtue of our giving and the like, may we awaken to benefit all. Then, the blessing of Manjushri appearing as the emanation of Vimalamitra, the 13th rebirth of Gyaltse Laje, Pema Dongak Lingpa, holder of the 7 special transmissions, Nijeeta Jagtiani, to you we pray. Okay, then, yeah, and as I said, there today is Khyentse Chökyi Lodro's anniversary, and I wanted to show you just 3 pictures of him, just as a reminder. For me, it is a little bit like, what is it called? Liberation by seeing. So here is one picture. This is from a meeting with Khenpo Shenga. And here is one picture from Tsongtsa. And here is one meeting also from Tsongtsa where he's sitting on the throne of Nijeeta Jagtiani, and you can see the Kutsap in the background. And I thought to honor him today, we could maybe recite together a short text by him. It's called A Reminder to Myself. This was translated by Adam Piercy, thanks to the support of Kane's Foundation at Turton Social Trust. And it doesn't actually have a title, but yeah, it makes sense according to the Colophon to call this text A Reminder to Myself. So maybe let's start with that, and then we dive into our Tara text. So, and for the Chinese-speaking people, ni hao. Yeah, Stephanie Lee was translating this text yesterday, and I think you can find it in Chinese in the chat. Okay, let's just read it slowly. A reminder to myself. At the feet of the Father Guru, I pay homage. Embrace me at all times with compassion. This body, a borrowed house of the four elements, does not last beyond a moment, but swiftly perishes. Life is as impermanent as a dewdrop upon the grass. The enemy, the ferocious demonic lord of death, waits before me even now, ready to receive me. The great burden of negative deeds I've committed, I will bear within my mind and consciousness as I go. Dear friends and companions I must leave behind, I will be unable to take possessions I've amassed. At the moment of proceeding, who knows where, I will be driven on by the fierce winds of karma. As I experience untold hallucinations of Yama, how terrifying the abyss of the three poisons. The misery of the lower realms is unendurable. To think of it now causes my heart to tremble. The more I think of it, the more I recall the Guru. When this karma arises, no one but the teacher could be my refuge. Hold me in your compassion. Guru, only Father, I call to you. Consider me with love. I pray, embrace me, an evildoer, with compassion. Bless me that my mind may turn toward the Dharma. Guru, watch over me. Thus, Jamin Khenpo literature wrote this Thus, Jamin Khenpo literature wrote this as a reminder to himself on the 15th day of the 4th month of the water sheep year. You can also find this text, of course, at Lutz Haberhaus, where it is published. Okay, and now let's go into our Tara text. And I think we will start with Nijeeta to read this song for us.
Thanks, Arne, and hello, everyone. I'll start reading from the top in English. A melody of sublime, everlasting deathlessness. Aho, Om, auspicious white silk of countless virtues. You have perfected the excellent marks, each and every contour of enlightened form. Seeing them ravishes the mind. I long for Ārya Tārā, the wish-fulfilling wheel. Bestow the siddhi of unchanging, sublime immortality. Tare, all vast and profound teachings that liberate from the ocean of samsara, arise from the veena of the noble lady's secret speech. Hearing them brings complete liberation. I long for Ārya Tārā, the wish-fulfilling wheel. Bestow the siddhi of unceasing Vajranada. Bhutare, wisdom appearance of Mother Prajna Paramita. You protect against the torments of dualistic fixation. Through remembering you, the supreme is granted. I long for Ārya Tārā, the wish-fulfilling wheel. Bestow the siddhi of unmistaken luminous essence. Ture, the youthful vigor of your compassion is swift like lightning. Great blissful companion, you mesmerize with 10 million qualities of renunciation and realization. You shower down the twofold benefit. I long for Ārya Tārā, the wish-fulfilling wheel. Bestow the city of effortless and limitless enlightened qualities. Swaha, granting all things virtuous and good just as they are. Splendor of the supreme magical display of pacifying, increasing, magnetizing, and subjugating. You pervade all of samsara and nirvana. I long for Ārya Tārā, the wish-fulfilling wheel. Restore the city of unobstructed, enlightened activity to grant everything desirable. May the lotus feet of the eminent holders of the teachings remain firm for 100 eons. May the vast world be pervaded with the illumination of teaching, practice, and activity. And while devout rulers, ministers, and citizens enjoy the 10 virtues, may the city of spontaneous fulfillment of wishes be bestowed. In the sky, rainbow clouds of the 5 wisdoms below. In mid-air, flowers of virtue and goodness fall like raindrops. And on earth, I offer this auspicious song of joyfulness for all beings as a virtuous aspiration for all the world. Composed by the servant who delights of the lake-born Guru Pema, lake-born Guru, Pema Vosel Tonga Klingpa, on the occasion of a sadhana offering ritual of the noble wish-fulfilling moon. The flute of these words of supplication, remembering her inconceivable secrets, was played by the fingers of whatever arose in my mind. May the light of virtue and goodness pervade all the world and become everlasting.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And then I would like to hand over to Dana to discuss a little bit where this wonderful text is positioned in our catalog of German Cancer Pro. Over to you.
Thank you, Arne, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for this discussion about this text. And before diving into the text, I just want to acknowledge and appreciate all of the effort and all of the people that are involved in bringing a translation like this to publication. First, I want to express my appreciation to Adam Kane, who was the senior translator and mentor for Nijeeta and I working on this text together. Nijeeta and I were part of the first Kensei Vision Project sponsored translator training program. And as a continuation of that, we were able to work with Adam on translating a few texts. And he's a really experienced both textual and oral translator. And it was really, a privilege to have that opportunity to work with him on this. And then Nijeeta very much as a support co-translator and good friend, very supportive in working on all of this, all of these translations. Then also for the text itself, consultation with Khenpo Choying Dorje, as well as Adzam Gyaltse Rinpoche. We were able to consult with both of them about difficult points of this text. And within the KVP project world, Heidi Nevin was the Tibetan reviewer for this text and offered many really helpful suggestions. And Albion Butters was the editor and ushered the whole thing through the whole, KVP workflow to publication. And then I in particular want to express my appreciation and awe, I think, for our project director and founder, Dolma Gunther. She is an incredible person and is really the energy behind bringing all of these texts within KVP to fruition. And I think we could talk for the whole hour about Dolma's good qualities and her skills, but I just want to acknowledge really, and appreciate her her efforts in making this Kinsey Vision project really, bringing it to fruition. So in part, just acknowledging all these people, it gives a little bit of an idea of how many folks are involved in a translation like this. It's not just the translators. There are reviewers and editors and consultants, and it ends up being seen and read by many, many people before coming to publication. And so that's part of, gives a little bit of insight into the Kinsey Vision Project workflow. This text, I also wanted to mention where it occurs in the catalog of Jamin Kinsey Wangpo. And in part, I want to do that because this text, if you go to the reading room, if you're looking at the text within the Kinsey Vision Project reading room, I can give a little bit of navigation tutorial around the reading room. And within the reading room, if you do a search, you go to Kinsey Vision Project and you do a search, you can search either by genre or by a specific text name, or you can search the entire catalog. And if you search the entire catalog, including unpublished texts, it gives you an idea of the vast collection of Jamin Kinsey Wangpo's writing. It's really incredible, not just in quantity, but the breadth of what he wrote on and the styles of writing. So it's worth taking a look at, the catalog sometime and poking around the reading room to get an idea of what this corpus is like. So within the catalog, this text about Tara occurs in the middle of this trio of songs. And they are 3 songs, sort of a trilogy of songs that are written to the deities of long life. The first one is identified with the number B1567, and it's a Vajra song of obeisance to the guardian Amitabha. And then there is this song, this supplication to Tara that we're looking at today. And then the third one is B1569, a Vajra song invoking the vows of Ārya Vijaya. And so these are 3 long life deities that often occur together. And so the other 2 texts are not yet translated. And this prayer, this text is composed as a song, and it's identified as such in the title by the Tibetan word lu. So it's really a song of longing and devotion to Tara, the wish-fulfilling wheel, this white Tara in this form of the wish-fulfilling wheel. And last week, Lama Tshering Everest explained really beautifully in her teaching on this text. She described how this song just exudes the nectar of joy. And it really is this joyous, longing supplication, a kind of almost sort of a love song to Tara by Jamin Kinsey Wangpo. And I highly recommend watching Lama Tshering Everest's teaching on this text in the KVP YouTube channel, which will be available soon. She really invoked the whole feeling, this feeling of joy and devotion and longing, and really spoke so beautifully about that. So to speak a little bit about the translation, when you first begin a translation, you really are not sure what you're going to encounter. And, we knew from the title that it was a song about white Tara, the wish-fulfilling wheel, but not much more than that. And so as we began, reading it and looking into it, it was right away in the first line, we were sort of faced with this question about the meaning of a word at the end of the Tibetan line, this word reka. And it's a word that was written with a Sanskrit spelling, and it was given in a dictionary with the Tibetan equivalency of rimo, which means a painting or drawing. But it was a little bit mysterious why in this first line of this supplication, there might be a reference to a painting or a drawing, or was it something else? And so sort of, right away we were, hit with this issue of translation and, wondering what this was about. So after a bit more research around, looking into white Tara in general, one of us either recalled or ran across some information about this image that's actually a Thangka painting that would actually speak to Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo. And so we looked into it a little bit further, and there is this famous image that was in Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's empowerment room. And his empowerment room was called the Garden of Immortality at Zongzar in Tibet. And in this room hung this image or Thangka painting of white Tara, this very version, the wish-fulfilling wheel of white Tara. And doing a little bit more research, if you look in the reading room on the About tab, you'll see that this is where the translator's introduction is written and exists. So at the bottom of the introduction, we speak about this image a little bit. And there's a footnote there. It's footnote number 1, which takes us to a link on the Lotsawa House site, where Ujun Tabgyo Rinpoche gives a brief historic description of this image. And so it's very interesting. We came across this, and Ujun Tabgyo Rinpoche describes how many times Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo had visions of white Tara where the wisdom deity dissolved into this image. And he goes on to say that she would deliver prophecies, grant teachings and advice, and bestow empowerments by sending out miraculous rays of light, as well as inspiring countless pure visions. So this image was obviously really a powerful, a powerful component for Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo. And Ujun Tabgyo Rinpoche goes on to describe that also Jamyang Kongtrul, Lodro Taye, and Chogyur Lingpa, Khyentse Wangpo's close associates at that time, also received blessings from the image directly and would also receive pure visions. And he also talks about how Jamyang Khyentse Chokyi Lodro experienced pure visions and empowerments, and even brought about the revelation of a terma through this image. So we see from this that clearly this image was, not just a painting on the wall, but like powerfully embodied Tara. And seemingly for Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, the image was no different from Tara herself. She would speak to him, bring pure visions, offer empowerments through this image. So with this bit of information about Tara and this image, we carried on. We kind of left the first line in this Reka word, this word Reka, as an open question, and we carried it on with the rest of the translation. When we did have the opportunity to consult with Khenpo Choyung Dorje about the text, and we asked him about this word, he said that it was this Reka is a type of white silk that is made in Varanasi. And this reading of the Reka was confirmed by another Khenpo from the Dzongzar Shedra in a question that Nijeeta asked him. And when we asked Adzam Rinpoche about this, he suggested that it referred to an auspicious painting. And if you look again in the reading room, in footnote number 2, which is in the first line of the text, we talk about this a little bit. It's noted there. And so we thought that it was probably had something to do with this image of Tara. But there was no way for us to know with certainty if this was really what Khyentse Wangpo was referring to, or if it was a poetic device. There was this question about, is it a white silk from Varanasi, or is it actually the painting? So ultimately, we chose to let this kind of ambiguity and the evocative imagery of the white silk be present for the reader in the translation, while also trying to provide some historical context about, what this might mean, an auspicious white silk of countless virtues. So I wanted just to talk about this because it gives a little bit of an idea of our process working through this translation. And Dolma just posted in the chat the image of this white Tara. And the white Tara now is in India with Dzongzar Khyentse Rinpoche. And so, yeah, again, there was no way for us to really be certain, and we didn't want to say that, definitely it was referring to this image. So we made the decision to just leave in the translation this poetic imagery of the white silk, and let that, kind of speak for itself. Yeah, so we ended up with this line, Om, auspicious white silk of countless virtues. So I wanted to just say that bit as a little bit of an introduction to the text, a little bit of the mysterious things that you encounter when translating, and then also to segue to Adam and Nijeeta to talk a little bit further about Tara and pure vision and some of the other poetic imagery within the song itself. So that's what I had to say. Arne, if there's other questions that come up, I'm happy to try and answer them, or we can pass it along to Adam to speak a little further about Tara, pure visions.
Thank you so much, Dana. I just want to open the file, because it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing, and you can zoom in, it's so beautiful. Yeah, thank you, Dana, so much. Yeah, anybody, so the idea is that this is a little bit workshopy, what we are doing, so please feel free to talk to the presenters, after each small presentation. So if you have any questions to Dana or what we have done so far, please raise your virtual hand or your real one. Gloris. You are muted.
Okay. Good day, everybody.
Good to see you.
You know what year made this tanka?
I don't know. Dana, do you know when this tanka was made?
I
You
don't.
have
I
the
don't know.
record. You have the record of what made what something about the about this tanka.
I don't know those sort of specifics. I don't know if Dolma, if you know any more about this.
I don't actually, but I'm sure that there's some story that Ogintok Rinpoche must have told at some point about it, that where there's more details about who painted it and where it's from. So I'm sure we can look into it a little bit further. I bet there's a story. Yeah, there's some story in Lotsawa House. Ina just posted that link.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I don't know.
Yeah, and that story, he doesn't describe the sort of source of the painting at all. He just talks about its effect on Khyentse Wangpo.
I bet somewhere there's some more details from O.T. Rinpoche. We'll have to ask him.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, anything else, anyone? Okay. Also, Dana, I wanted to thank you for mentioning our workflow. That I think would be also a session in itself, because if any of you would imagine yourself being the text, from in Tibetan, you would like circle around the globe quite a lot until it ends up in our reading room, because I forgot the steps, but maybe 20, 25 steps we have, from the Tibetan until it is publishable, maybe even 30 steps. And it is such a long journey, and so many hands and eyes and brains and hearts are involved on the way. It is really something. Yeah, and it's wonderful how it all comes together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Dana. Then please, Adam, join the spotlighted stage and tell us more about Tara.
Thank you, Arne. Hello, everyone. I just want to echo all the gratitude that Dana expressed. I won't repeat all of it, but I echo all of it. So it's an honor to be here with this community and my fellow translators, Dolma and Arne, and the whole team. So thank you for having us. I just wanted to say a few things about the text and a little bit of context. So, of course, I don't feel qualified to comment on a text of this profundity at all, but I'll share a few thoughts. And I'm sure many people listening know much more about Tara and the practice of Tara than I do, but I'll share a few thoughts and observations. As many of you know, Tara is a very beloved, important deity in Vajrayana Buddhism. Tara has an incredible history, which I highly recommend delving into. It's very interesting. There's a few origin stories out there. Beautiful. They're very kind of extraordinary. One involves her kind of coming to be from a tear of Avalokiteshvara when he had the realization that as many beings as he could liberate, it seemed like the number of beings in samsara was not getting any less. And so then tears flowed down Avalokiteshvara's face. And then one of those tears became, I think, a blue Utpala flower, and Tara was born on that flower. That's one of the origin stories. Another one is a very beautiful story of a faraway world many eons ago, and a devout practitioner who made offerings to Buddhas for many eons. And I think some masters at the time gathered and said to her, "You have extreme qualities and extraordinary potential. Why don't you take rebirth as a man and become enlightened as a Buddha and fulfill that potential. At which point she rightfully scolded them and said, no, actually, there are not enough beings expressing enlightenment in female form. And so I take a vow to appear in female form forever and accomplish Buddhahood in female form and benefit beings. And so she did, and she attained Buddhahood and has been appearing and benefiting beings ever since. So that's another beautiful origin story, which you can find the details of. And Tara there's a long history of Tara practice in Indian Vajrayana Buddhism, Newari Vajrayana Buddhism, and of course Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism. And other forms of Tara appear in Chinese Buddhism. And there's many forms of Tara. The most well-known, probably green Tara, white Tara, and red Tara, but in fact there's others. Also, green Tara appears in 21 forms, famously, and one of the 21 Tara praise is very beloved in the Himalayan world. Many monks, nuns, and lay people recite this all the time. And Tara has many qualities, protecting against fear, conferring blessings of longevity, healing, and of course, enlightened activity, helping practitioners accomplish the stages of the path. So Tara is a very important deity in all four major schools of Tibetan Buddhism and beyond that as well. So so that's just a tiny bit about Tara, and Tara is a wisdom deity, of course. I think that goes without saying. And just to say one word about that for those who may not be familiar with that concept, a wisdom deity is an important concept in Vajrayana Buddhism because there's a distinction made between worldly deities and wisdom deities, and this is a very significant distinction. Worldly deities, which are also plentiful and may have some worldly cities or powers, but are still within the 6 realms of samsara. Maybe part of the God realm, or perhaps even the form or formless realm. Either the 6 realms of the desire realm, or the form or the formless realm. But they're still within samsara, and as such are not considered capable of offering refuge or guiding us on the path to liberation, because they themselves have not arrived there yet. Whereas wisdom deities are enlightened beings appearing as deities, and may look quite similar to a worldly deity, a worldly god, but there's very important difference. Enlightened deities, or wisdom deities as they're often called, which would include Tara, are worthy to go for refuge in and seek blessings from, and seek not just ordinary worldly cities or accomplishments, but also the supreme accomplishment of liberation, enlightenment. And so that is something that only wisdom deities can offer, because they themselves have already attained it. So this is an important small comment. I know many of you know that already, but Tara is a wisdom deity. So I wanted to say a few words about the text and about pure vision, just because it's such an extraordinary lineage. And first of all, something just to notice about the text itself. The structure of the text is based on the main mantra of Tara. There are other longer mantras of Tara for particular lineages and practices, such as longevity practices and others. But the main key mantra of Tara is Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha, which is the structure of the text. And if we look at the verses, each of the syllables of the Tara mantra gets its own shloka, gets its own 4-line verse. And what's quite extraordinary is that the often enlightened being, when we speak about an enlightened being's the full picture, they may have at least 5 dimensions that are often mentioned. Their enlightened form, their enlightened speech, the enlightened mind, enlightened qualities, and enlightened activities. And this is actually the structure of this text. So the first, Om, is a praise and request centered around Tara's enlightened form, Tare, around her enlightened speech, Tutare, her enlightened mind, Ture, her enlightened qualities, and finally Swaha, her enlightened activities. And so those 5 dimensions of Tara are sort of elegantly woven into this text. As Dana mentioned, it's a song, and as Lama Tsering Everest very beautifully pointed out, it's poetry. And one thing I wanted to say is this kind of genre of spontaneous songs is a really beloved and a beautiful genre of texts that we find in Tibetan Buddhism from many periods in history and many masters. And so it is said that when a master achieves a certain level of realization, that spontaneous expressions can come out of them. And these are very beloved and considered very sacred and precious. They're sometimes called dorje lu, or a Vajra song. Sometimes they're called other things. But they often sing them. And so there's many great masters are famous for their spontaneous songs. Milarepa is one of the most well-known. The 100,000 songs of Milarepa, and many other masters also would sing spontaneous songs as expressions, spontaneous, joyful expressions of enlightened energy in the form of a song. And I think that's just totally extraordinary. If we think about that as a moment of composition, it's so fundamentally different than how somebody like myself might compose something, where we would sit down, get a rough idea, write some notes, crumple it up, throw it in the bin, start again, ask a friend, revise it, move the top to the bottom to the top, cross some lines out, think of a better metaphor. The way that we compose things is very different than as a pure kind of spontaneous expression. And so just reflecting on that, as I read this text again and again, I just find it so extraordinary because the complexity and depth and elegance of this song and many other of Khyentse Wangpo's songs, it's not rough also. Somehow it's spontaneous, and yet it is very subtle, very complex, very elegant, and structured. And so there's a lot going on in this spontaneous expression. We have the syllables of the mantra. We have, as I mentioned, enlightened form, speech, mind, qualities, and activities. We have then, each one of them begins with a praise and then ends with a supplication or a request for the blessings associated with that enlightened quality. And so this is an amazingly elegant and layered expression. And so often in this genre of spontaneous song, it is said that a master will just sing it, and then hopefully there's someone standing around, like a disciple or a student, a scribe, who writes it down. Sometimes the master themselves will write it down. Often one of their students will write it down. And rarely is it ever changed? Sometimes the scribe will make a mistake because many Tibetan syllables sound similar. So they may then check with the master and correct the spelling of it. But it's not that they'll revise the poem and rewrite it. It's often a finished thing when it comes out. And so that's a very extraordinary mode of expression, and said to be different than ordinary composition and expression, because it's coming straight from a realized mind, joyfully and spontaneously. And often they would sing it with a particular melody, and sometimes those melodies remain and are actually known, and a lineage of both the text and the melody can exist. And then, people who love and respect that expression may sing the song in the melody as well, which I think is really amazing. So I'm not sure if this has a melody or not, but many songs do. So, and this was reflected, we get a little hint of that in the Colophon, as Nijeeta beautifully read, where it says, "The flute of these words of supplication, remembering her inconceivable secrets, was played by the fingers of whatever arose in my mind." So this is a hint left by Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo about how this song came about, and him admitting or revealing that it was a spontaneous song. And then, with this is so poetic the way he put it. So I think that's an extraordinary thing to remember, not just in this song, but in many of the spontaneous songs from masters of the caliber of Khyentse Wangpo. And they're considered to have particular blessing because the expressive energy of their realized mind comes out in these songs in extraordinary ways. And so another thing I wanted to mention is to just pick up on a few comments Dana made. So it's pure speculation. We don't know the relationship between the famous Tara image and this text, but if you permit us to make some of those speculations, the fact that Khyentse Wangpo possessed an image that gave him countless blessings, pure visions, empowerments, blessed his students and friends, and he had visions with the wisdom being dissolving into it. It then gave him empowerments, blessings, and transmissions. Is a very unusual and extraordinary thing, actually. And I think that there's the hint of that word "reka" in the first line is very suspicious. So, and in the Colophon as well, I'm trying to build some narrative suspense here. Of course, an actual translation plays out over months and months. It's not like an episode of Sherlock Holmes, but we can present it like that. So he says that it occurred on the occasion of a sadhana offering ritual of the noble wish-fulfilling moon, which was another name for Tara, wish-fulfilling moon. And so one might imagine, and this again is pure speculation, but doing a sadhana offering ritual in the mood of offering ritual, which is a mood of gratitude and inspiration, then and he's perhaps remembering or even looking at this extraordinary sacred blessed image of white Tara, which we know he had in his empowerment room, which gave him countless pure visions and transmissions. And then remembering not just what he read about Tara in a text or what somebody told him about Tara, but Tara herself appearing in a pure vision, dissolving into the image, and then reappearing countless times. And so that closeness to Tara we feel, I think, in this text. And so perhaps he remembered that or even saw it again, and this expression came out. So that is a segue into another thing I wanted to briefly say a few things about, which is the extraordinary lineage of pure vision. Lama Tsering Everest mentioned this briefly in her beautiful teaching. There's often, there's actually quite a few modes of transmission, I think 7 main modes, but mainly it's discussed as 3. The lineage of Kama, which is presented orally from master to student over many, many, many centuries, and links us back to the historical Buddha and many masters from hundreds of years ago or even thousands. The lineage of Terma, which is treasures hid by highly realized masters to be discovered in later times with teachings appropriate for those times, discovered by tertuns or treasure revealers. And then the third kind is called the lineage of Zabmo Dangnang, or profound pure vision. And there's actually 3 categories of the Zabmo Dangnang, or profound pure vision. There's Milam, dreams, Nangwa, a vision, and Ngunsum, direct experience. So these are 3 categories of profound pure visions. And it is considered that direct experience, or Ngunsum, is the most powerful and sublime of these, although all of them are, of course, amazing. And so this image of Tara that Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo possessed, and the, I dare say, the intimacy that we may read into this praise and song, is connected to the pure visions, I feel, or inspired by the pure visions that a master like Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo had of Tara. And so, it's very different if we hear someone tells us a story versus showing us footage of the story on their phone versus directly seeing something, or maybe we could imagine seeing it in a dream or in a kind of visionary state, or directly seeing it as we see what's in front of us. And so the closeness and intimacy of the lineage of pure vision is really extraordinary. And the fact that Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo had countless pure visions of many deities, and especially had this amazing connection with Tara, and the image of Tara that he had, and Tara, the wisdom being of Tara appearing, dissolving, blessing, empowering, is really something very special and unusual. His connection to that Sambhogakaya realm and the blessings of Tara is very, very close. And so somehow, for me, thinking of that and reading the poem imbues it with kind of the intimacy that I imagine he had. Also, the tone of his praise in the beginning of each of these verses is really exquisite, capturing so many extraordinary qualities and texts and lineages of Tara into a line of text. So that was just a few comments I wanted to share about the text as I reread it the last few days. Some things that came to mind to share. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments, and then could pass it to Nijeeta to speak a little bit about the imagery of the text.
Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you for sharing your enthusiasm that you have with this text and everything connected to it. Thank you so much. And also for building up, what did you call it? Narrative suspense. I really liked it. There's one question. I don't know if you have seen it. I can read it for you. Is there a Sanskrit original name of the Cintāmaṇicakra or is it back translated from the Tibetan? And if so, where is Mani?
Oh, that I don't know actually. Maybe somebody else on the call knows whether that was back translated from the Tibetan or is the original Sanskrit version or name of that form of Tara. But I don't know.
Yeah, I have no clue. Okay. Is there anything else from anyone that you would like to discuss with Adam? Yes, Anas.
Hi everyone. First, thanks to all contributing to making this text accessible and also making this kind of events also possible. So I would just would like please to ask a question regarding the Kensei vision or translation process, and more specifically, could you please share with us how did the text selection go? So exactly among Jamin Kensei Wakpo's corpus of texts. How did it come to that? Yeah, you went about this particular text. Thank you.
Maybe Adam, do you want to answer that, or shall we involve Dorma with that?
Oh, whatever, it's fine.
Up to you, if you want to.
Dalma clearly has a better overview of it.
I can say something about the general selection of text that happens, but really we had a lot of discussion at the beginning of the project whether we wanted to take a kind of formal, structured approach to prioritizing texts, or whether we wanted to be a little bit more flexible and spontaneous with the selection of texts. And in the end, it was partially decided for us on the availability of translators, because the variety of genres is so wide, it's impossible for one translator to be able to translate all the different genres. So really, you know, translators have their niche area of expertise, and they also have their love of particular subject matters or particular deities or, you know, particular karmic connections, and also particular practice experience. And, you know, they've received particular empowerments for texts and so on. So in the end, it made a lot more sense to go with what was right before us, in the sense of what the translators wanted to do, where their expertise lay, and so on. So often we choose a text on the basis of a translator expressing interest in a particular text. So they present options, and then we have a vetting committee in the project. So any translator who wants to translate a text, the proposal gets passed through the vetting committee, and we try to make sure that the translators have the right background, knowledge, expertise, research capacity, and all the rest of it to be able to translate the text. And then also there's a question of receiving empowerments and so on. But so that's a kind of general overview of how we go about selecting texts. One other factor is really the demand of the sanghas. So in terms of the big sadhana cycles, the terma cycles that Kensei Wampo discovered, a lot of them are actually being practiced by many sanghas around the world, particularly the Siddharthas and Tenth Sangha. And so more recently, we've prioritized practice texts that are going to be practiced, because obviously, you know, our aim is to, and I'm sure Kensei Wampo's aim is to get people enlightened. So the most important thing is to produce texts that people are actually going to practice and use on the path of liberation. So that's kind of our number one priority. And then anything that a translator really feels passionate about doing. So that's a general answer. But Adam, maybe you can say a little bit more about this particular text, because I think it was, actually, I don't know who suggested this text out of Dana, Nijeeta, and Adam. So maybe you guys can talk about that.
Actually, I think I can speak to this a little bit. You know, when we were going to work with Adam, Nijeeta and I sort of perused the catalog to try and find, you know, a text that we felt like was appropriate. And the first one we hit upon was a Lojong text, actually, and this mind training genre, which, you know, is a really wonderful and interesting genre of text. And so the first text we began with, Adam, was in this lojong genre. And we quickly discovered that it was commenting on another lojong text that was like 250-page long commentary. So this was a commentary on that commentary that had never been translated. And so we realized, pretty quickly that, we didn't have the time or resources to, delve into that, to finish that. So we went back to the catalog and, searched again for things that would be a reasonable length. And as Dolma is saying, kind of within, a genre that we felt compelled to, or, these songs and these like praises and songs. So, we revisited the catalog and discovered, this one and a few others that are similar like this.
Thank you. Adam, did you please also have the chance to answer to this if you want to add anything?
Oh no, that's the story. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the story. And we in general, when we look through the catalog, myself, I've only done a few texts for the Kensia Vision project, but when I look through the catalog, I feel like I look for something that is inspiring, that I feel is doable with my skill set and knowledge, and that is inspiring, because if you're inspired, it can help carry you through the many months of research and editing and the process.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, and as Dolma mentioned also, yeah, we really want to serve the Sangha or Sanghas, so a couple of times, yeah, when we heard Tsongtsa Khyentse Rinpoche will teach here on that topic, or will give that kind of empowerment, then of course, that is our start, to start translating that sadhana or that text. And I think also if you're from maybe another Sangha and your teacher wants to do this or that, and you need that text, please also contact us, so that we can serve the other Sangha, if there's another Sangha somewhere. So that is really our main aim, to provide everybody with the material they need to practice and attain enlightenment, as Dolma said. Yeah. Okay, anybody else who wants to ask something to Adam? Or okay, then I think, Nijeeta, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Arne, and hello again, everyone. I just want to echo what Dana and Adam have said. I just feel so fortunate to be here and to get to translate this text with these proficient translators. And I also think it's very fortunate for all of us to be here today to discuss Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's work on this auspicious day. So I'll just share a little bit of, Arne, when told me about this workshop, said what would be like a couple of themes or some topics about the text or the translation process that you enjoyed the most and would like to discuss. And then I sat with the text, and what came to mind is really the beautiful metaphors and imagery that Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo has used throughout this text. Which is so inspiring and really shows Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo's skillful means with language in this poem, in this song. And so I have a couple of examples that I'd like to read aloud. And of course, if you have more, and of course, Adam and Dana, if you have more, please chime in. So for me, the first one is on page 7 of the translation, starting with Ture. And it goes like, the youthful vigor of your compassion is swift like lightning. Great blissful companion, you mesmerize with 10 qualities of renunciation and realization. You shower down the twofold benefit. I long for Ārya Tārā, the wish-fulfilling wheel, bestow the siddhi of effortless and limitless enlightened qualities. So for me, like this the Tibetan, lok tar nyurwe, your compassion is swift like lightning, you really feel this closeness with Ārya Tārā, and the way Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, of course, expresses his closeness. There's one technique that he uses in this text, which again is so beautiful, the repetition of the Tibetan ten-syllable. I long for Ārya Tārā. It's repeated throughout the text, and for me, it really works, of bringing to mind Ārya Tārā, how to supplicate to her. So that's one of the examples in the text itself, which is very inspiring for me. And then the other one is towards the bottom of the same page, the last verse, which is, in the sky, rainbow clouds of the five wisdoms below. In midair, flowers of virtue and goodness fall like raindrops. And on earth, I offer this auspicious song of joyfulness for all beings as a virtuous aspiration for all the world. So again, like this rainbow clouds, falling flowers, songs pervading the globe. I think it really makes like the text come alive for me. And I think finally what I would like to say for this text is that revisiting it after some time, quite some months of translation, it's short, right? It's not a very long text, and it might seem simple. And as Adam already taught us, that it's actually quite complex and it's so profound, and it's really supplication to Ārya Tārā as a path to enlightenment. I think Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo is teaching us in this text on how to be a devotee of Ārya Tārā, like how to supplicate. Through himself supplicating to Ārya Tārā, he teaches us that. So those were the couple of verses, and the beautiful use of different figures of speech, metaphors, and imagery that were very inspiring for me. And if anyone in the group over here has, while you read the text, anything comes to mind that's inspiring for you, please share with us. And of course, Adam and Dana, if you have any that you'd like to talk about, now's a good time.
Anybody, anything?
Adam, I wanted to see if I could request from you. Yesterday, Adam, Nijeeta, and I met to discuss this a little bit, and it's going back to the imagery of the white silk in the first line, Adam. And yesterday, you were riffing on all of the potential imagery of this phrase, that it was so beautiful. And I was wondering if you might be able to do that again today a little bit.
Well, I mean, I'm happy to. It's all speculative though, so this is not. I don't want this to be mistaken for a knowledgeable commentary, because it's certainly not. But yeah, I noticed a question came up about someone looked up the Sanskrit meaning, or one of the definitions of reka, and so none of us are Sanskritologists, at least as far as I know. I certainly am not. But yeah, one thing I did think to mention is, especially when working from a Tibetan text that's held in the context of a Tibetan tradition, then of course we're gathering as much information as we can when we want to translate that or understand it. But the word, whatever it may, connotations it may or may not have in another, in its source language even, when it's used in a Tibetan context, then it's understood in that context as well. And this is an issue that is very interesting and comes up in translation. I'm sure there's some proper Sanskrit scholars watching, shaking their heads in dismay. But One thing to remember is, Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, a master that lived in the 1800s, who had an incredible mastery of all kinds of layers of using language and folding metaphor and simile into poetic expression. Also, riffing and playing with language. He was known for that. He was known to be such a great sort of master of the meaning that he actually was quite a pioneer and played with form in language, which was quite unusual. Tibetan composition has rules like any language, and he was, I would say, ahead of his time, and explored some what we might now consider to be postmodern deconstructive attitudes around language, what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do, and what can be rearranged in certain ways. So that's kind of an interesting comment. But I guess with a word like this, we're trying to, of course, gain as much information as we can, but from within the tradition is primary. So how a teacher, a Khenpo, a Lama, in the lineage of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo would understand that term from their point of view is perhaps even more relevant than what a Sanskritologist might dig up around its usage in other contexts, because it's being used in the lineage, transmitted in that lineage, and used within the metaphorical context of that lineage. So so in that sense, even if we find other definitions of a word in a Sanskrit dictionary, they may be less relevant than how it's held or understood within the Tibetan understanding of that, or how that word was appropriated and used by Tibetans. So in any case, this Reka, multiple sources from within the tradition, Khenpos, Lamas, knowledgeable people, mentioned to us that it refers to a kind of white silk found from Benares or Varanasi. So we were speculating that perhaps the painting itself was done on that silk. That's one possibility. Also, of course, white silk would be one of the Sambhogakaya ornaments of a deity like Tara. And so even the image itself is kind of maybe hard to see all of the ornaments, but in many other descriptions of Tara, Sambhogakaya form, she's wearing silks. That's one of the classic Sambhogakaya ornaments. So the possibility for many layers of metaphor in a simple word like Reka, which could refer to the material of the image from which Tara is appearing to Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo in these pure visions. It could appear to silk worn by Tara. Of course, the silk, all of the Sambhogakaya ornaments are symbolic. It's not literally like a kata, from our world wrapped around her neck, but it's all of the imagery is symbolic. So the white silk is associated with purity, auspiciousness, virtue, and indicates meanings like that. So that's also woven in as well. So the literal metaphor, the symbolic meaning of the metaphor, and then the layers of what that could represent, and how it's a way for him to sort of poetically enter into this mood of supplication.
Thank you so much. I would like to address a few questions that people wrote in the chat, so that you please don't feel we're ignoring your questions. One question was about what is the noble wish-fulfilling moon? I would say it's like a beautiful epithet for Tara herself. As Adam earlier mentioned, Tara is an enlightened deity, right? So that's why it's justified to use the term noble. And then wish fulfilling, I think is also justified because, yeah, she can fulfill all our wishes. and that is also tied in with a question somebody had, what is the twofold benefit? So she's making sure, that these twofold benefits are accomplished, the benefit for ourselves, that we attain enlightenment or Buddhahood, and also that all sentient beings can attain enlightenment or Buddhahood. So she's granting all these wishes, wherever we have the karmic link, the lack of obscurations or the pure connection, then these benefits can be granted. And of course, the main thing in this context is also that she grants deathlessness, in other words, that we realize this unborn, unceasing state of Dharmakaya. And moon is always in Buddhist thinking is always what is cooling us, cooling us down, because samsara is very heated, and thinking in terms of birth, abiding, and death, that is a very heated thing, so she's cooling that away, and so that we are in this deathless, unborn state. And yes, there's a question if we also recite the mantra. Definitely. The mantra part is always important. The mantra is basically the deity in the realm of sound, right? So instead of visualizing the form, that is the that level of deity, the sound that we can unite with, or that we can unite with. And also, please watch the video of Lama Tsering, when she was talking about the three vajras, vajra of body, speech, and mind. Of course, the mantra is very related to manifest or realize the vajra speech. And then maybe one question I would like to give back to you guys, the translators. There is the question about how do we know if it's a vajra song or if it's just a poem, Dolma was already posting something, and in that article, the main differentiation is if non-dual wisdom is present or not, because there might be many different Tibetan poems, that are just beautiful to listen to and might be inspiring. But having this non-dual wisdom or not seems to be the demarcation line, according to this article. But I would be curious to hear from any of you three, if you have any, if you read a Tibetan text, if it's poetic, how do you know if it's a song or a poem?
Well, I could just say briefly that often in the Colophon, there'll be some information on the source of the text. It's not always the case, and it's not always, clear. Sometimes it's minimalist or a little bit hidden, but often in the Colophon, you'll see, a Tibetan verb like dzom or ji, or, composed or written, or like, for example, in this Colophon, he says, the flute of the words was played by the fingers of whatever arose in my mind. So that it's a particularly poetic way to say it, but often you'll see similar things to this. The meaning is quite similar in colophons of spontaneous songs and vajra songs, where it'll say, whatever arose, I just said it, or, it just came out suddenly and without preparation, or, there's a variety of ways it's described in the colophon how such a text came about. And this particular text, the title, Chime Takpa Dampe Yangnin. So this melody of sublime, everlasting deathlessness. So the last part of that, yang nyen, which we translated as melody, for me is also a little bit of a hint that this could be considered a poetic song. I don't know if there's really rigid boundaries between poems and songs in the Tibetan world. I think that there's a lot of overlap, but certainly there would be, compositional poetic verses that would be on their own, what we would call a poem. Sometimes in works of prose, an author will suddenly write poetic verses within the flow of prose. And that is clearly composed. They're writing a text and then they write some poetic verses and then they continue their commentary. So that would be a little different than a spontaneous Vajra song emerging from a realized master's mind.
Yeah, perfect. That reminds me of how Tongsa Khyentse Rinpoche is also explaining it often. You know, it's not that Jamgon Khyentse Wangpo was like planning, thinking, sitting down, composing, rearranging, you know, checking the grammar and whatever, you know. But I think his example is sometimes like a fish leaping the water, you know, it's like baff, spontaneously, suddenly, you know, that is coming and it is brought to paper, you know, but it doesn't involve any planning, conceptual thinking. And that actually, I forgot to say, you know, when somebody asks about this noble wish-fulfilling moon, the wish-fulfilling aspect has that too, you know, there is no intention behind, you know, it's just coming out, you know, it's just manifesting without references. Yes, somebody wanted to say something?
Oh, just one small comment. I'm not very familiar with the epithet of Tara, the noble wish fulfilling moon, but I do know that Tara has long been associated with the moon, and one of the main enlightened activities of Tara is protection against fear. And so you know, the moon, you know, has many incredible symbolisms in Buddhist history. The image of the moon, you know, of course, the full moon represents full enlightenment, and the cooling quality, as you beautifully mentioned, and also the illumination that the moon provides at night. So, you know, of course, until very recently, there was no electric lights in Buddhist history, and so nighttime was a frightening thing. You couldn't see, you know, wild animals. You couldn't see robbers, bandits, and other dangers at night. And if you had to travel or if you were away from your home, it was scary. And so one of the fears that Tara protects against is the fear of darkness. And so the moon illuminates the night and lets us see and quells the fears of the night, fears of darkness, fears of wild animals, fears of robbers and bandits. And so that's one of Tara's enlightened activities. So I'm sure that there's much more people could say about that, but Tara has long been associated with the moon.
Beautiful. And I might share like a lot, like recently Jetsun Kando Rinpoche was talking about a text by Longchenpa, and Longchenpa was saying in this text, it's also to remind us that the moon of the nature of our mind is always full, has always been full. You know, even though it looks sometimes like a new moon or like a half moon or waxing or waning moon, you know, but we see, but actually it's always full. It has always been full, will always be full, you know, but it's just us not seeing fully what we really are, you know, Tara or the Buddha. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Then maybe we come to the colophon. Right, this would be the next part of our presentation with Adam, I feel.
Oh, well, I kind of already spoke about it, but I'm happy to share one or two more thoughts.
Yes.
In general, colophons are very important and beloved. I encourage all readers, whether they're, you know, Tibetan, whether they're studying the Tibetan language or work in Tibetan language, or just delighting in these beautiful texts in English or any other translated language. I highly encourage everyone to read the colophons. Sometimes they're treasure troves of information, and sometimes just exquisite in their own right. Plus, they provide context. They bring this sort of visionary world. Sometimes here it's not given the date and the time, but often in colophons it is. And so it's a connection between worlds. It also connects you to the author. They often say funny, humble things about themselves and the manner it was composed. You know, my earnest and virtuous and diligent disciple, whoever requested this old bucktooth, silly old man who babbles nonstop, and this is what came out. May it be helpful, and stuff like that. You see a lot in colophons, and it's charming and it's funny and it's beautiful, and it connects you to the humility, the humor of these masters. So I particularly cherish colophons a lot, and they can be hard to decode. That can be some of the more challenging parts of texts to actually capture. In any case, this is a very short colophon that does not give information about the time and place where the text was composed, but rather just the manner. And so, the way that Khyentse Wangpo presents himself here, which is not uncommon, is a servant who delights the lake-born guru. So that refers, of course, to Guru Rinpoche, to Padmasambhava, and gives one of his names, Pema Osel Donak Lingpa. He had many, many names. I'm sure you could do an entire hours-long seminar on all of his names and the meanings of them, which goes way beyond my knowledge. But this is one of his important names. And he presumably would use different names for different occasions because they're associated with different lineages he holds and different emanations that he is. And then he gives an occasion of the sadhana offering ritual of the noble wish-fulfilling moon. So this seems to be a reference to a offering puja or ritual based in sadhana, of course, to Tara. So that was the occasion that inspired this text, this poem or song to come out. I'm not sure what sadhana offering ritual it refers to. It doesn't give us any more details on that, but as he held so many lineages and so many practices, and as a great Rime master would have held Tara lineages from probably all 4 major schools of Tibetan Buddhism, and many, many, many for each form of Tara. Then we're not sure which one. But given that the poem is about the wish-fulfilling wheel form of Tara, we could speculate that it may have been a white Tara offering ritual. And then again, this beautiful line of how the flute of these words was played by the fingers of whatever arose in my mind. So a kind of sharing a little bit of, in a very poetic way, how this melody came out spontaneously through remembering the inconceivable secrets of Tara. And being someone who had many, many pure visions of Tara, which we know about. We don't know what a pure vision of Tara would be like to have, but we know that Khyentse Wangpo had many of them. And so as somebody with that closeness and intimacy to Tara, then there's an extra kind of beauty, depth, and intensity when he speaks of deities like that. And then he ends with this beautiful kind of aspiration: may the light of virtue and goodness pervade all the worlds and become everlasting. So often they would seal a text with a dedication or aspiration or both. So yeah, it's quite a straightforward colophon.
And quite beautiful and intense, as you said. Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you so much, Adam. And before we conclude, all you participants, is there anything you want to discuss? Or you 3 presenters, is there anything you would like to add?
Arne, I just wanted to say something. I wanted to say that I found this translation especially beautiful, and I really wanted to just thank all 3 of you for producing such an inspiring, beautiful text and a translation for us to be able to read. The language was so beautifully rendered, and you know, the difference between a good translation and a bad translation in really bringing through the blessings and the magic quality, especially of these Vajra songs, is critical. So thank you so much for conveying that beauty to us.
Yeah, this is really obvious in this translation. I also felt when Lama Tsering was reading it and Nijeeta today was reading it, it's so obvious that it's really going straight to the heart and it's coming from the heart. Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you. Okay, then maybe before we do the dedication prayer, yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Of course, thank you, Tara, for enabling all this. Jamin Khenze Wangpo, Tsansa Khenze Rinpoche, and Lama Tsering, who very beautifully introduced us to the text. And yeah, thank you so much, Storma, for being our queen and heart of the project. And yeah, thank you, you three, Adam, Dan, Dana, and Nijeeta, for really having spending so much time, love, effort, and wisdom to produce that beautiful translation. Thank you also to Stephanie, the translator of the Chinese, translating into Chinese today, and Ina for the technical support. And sorry.
Thank you, Arne. Thank you, Arne, also for
Oh.
hosting with so much heart.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Sweetness. And thank you, Dana. It's been a joy to work with you. I hope we continue to do that in the future. And yeah, thank you, KVP, for this beautiful format. It's really lovely.
Thank you. And I think Ina was posting it already in the chat a few minutes ago, 1 minute ago. So we also have a WhatsApp group. You can find it like 1 minute ago in the chat, where we can continue this kind of discussion, on the text of the month, and so through WhatsApp. So please, focus on the text, and then we can have fruitful discussions ongoingly there, so. Because that is always the aim, like with these texts that we translate, they should not, stay in a dusty virtual shelf somewhere, but we want to use them, we want to work with them, digest them, practice them, embody them, So what we are doing now is not the conclusion of this text, but it's like the starting point, let's continue with all that. Okay, then I will share some dedication prayers. And then we would conclude. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may all beings be free. Lord of the ocean of teachings in Tibet without bias, universal monarch of 7 wondrous transmissions, Jamin Khenze Wangpo, Van Yugosha in person, may all be auspicious for a lineage to spread and flourish. As long as space remains, as long as the world remains, may a true remain to elevate the sufferings of the world. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Please stay healthy and see you soon. Bye-bye.